All rise. The court is now in session. The Honorable Judge presiding.
What would you do
Don't let her
if one day you found a romantic dinner receipt in your husband's jacket, not with your name but someone else's, and later realized he'd flown to Paris with her, using a loan secured on your shared home, forged with your signature? The truth is, betrayal doesn't always come in silence behind closed doors. Sometimes it happens in a room full of people laughing, while you're the only one choking on the humiliation. And the cruelest part? When they think you're too gentle, too invisible, to fight back. But this isn't just a story. It's real. I followed Ashanti Mbeki's journey, a woman who once stood quietly behind her husband, only to one day walk into court with her head held high, armed with evidence, and walk out with justice in her name. In this video, you'll witness how she reclaimed 70% of their assets, not with rage or revenge, but with calm, calculated strength. Because even when you feel powerless, you still have power. Her husband lost everything with one signature. She built an empire with one decision, not to let pain define her. So stay with us, because this isn't just Ashanti's story. It might be yours, or someone you know. Tell me, where are you watching from today? Let's see how far this story of dignity and quiet power can go. With all my love and gratitude, welcome, and thank you for being here. The night had a stillness that felt unnatural, too perfect, too rehearsed, like silence pretending to be peace. The only sound was the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint jazz that floated from the old radio near the kitchen window. Ashanti stood barefoot on the cold marble floor, folding Cato's suit jacket with her usual precision. The lamplight washed over her face in soft amber, catching the faint sheen of exhaustion on her skin. For years she had done this, folding, smoothing, aligning sleeves to match seams, sealing love inside small gestures that no one ever noticed. But tonight something broke the rhythm, a scent. It wasn't his usual cologne. Cato always wore Tom Ford Noir, sharp and woody, the kind that lingered like a statement. This was different. Softer, wilder, Dior Sauvage, a smell she knew only from advertisements on city billboards, too intimate for a man who claimed to hate trends. Her fingers froze mid-fold. The fabric was warm, still holding his body's imprint, the faint trace of someone else's perfume wrapping around her like a question she didn't want to ask. She lifted the jacket closer to her nose. Beneath the expensive wool, beneath the starch and the ironed lines, there was the echo of another world. Smoke, citrus, and something almost like skin. Her heart gave a small, painful flutter. She turned the jacket over and saw a crumpled piece of paper half buried in the inner pocket. It wasn't like Cato to leave anything messy. She unfolded it carefully, her breath catching as she read the words printed across the glossy receipt. Maison Argent. Dinner for two. The date was last night. The total, $420. At the bottom, written in neat script, was a note. Thank you, Cato. C. Rhodes. The room seemed to tilt slightly. The jazz on the radio wavered, distorting like a memory underwater. C. Rhodes. She whispered the name as if tasting something bitter. The name had no face, yet it struck her with the certainty of déjà vu. She set the jacket down on the table and pressed her palms flat against the wood to steady herself. The air smelled faintly of wine and detergent, but beneath it all, that perfume persisted, mocking, delicate, undeniable. When the door clicked open hours later, Cato's voice broke the silence. "You're still up?" He sounded tired, practiced, almost bored. His tie was loosened, his shirt collar slightly open, revealing a chest she once traced with her fingers during the good days, when laughter filled this house. Now she only noticed the smudge of lipstick faintly staining the edge of his collar. "I couldn't sleep," she said softly. He nodded absently, tossing his briefcase onto the couch. "Long day. The board meeting went late. You know how it is." Her eyes lingered on him, searching for something that used to live there. A spark, a truth, maybe even guilt. Maison Argent? She asked, the words slipping out before she could stop them. He froze for a fraction of a second, then he smiled, slow, charming, and utterly hollow. You're reading receipts now? It was in your jacket. Right. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. That was with a client. Selena Rhodes. She's new. From the corporate office. Selena. The C. Her stomach tightened, but her voice remained steady. You never mentioned her. You don't need to know every name that crosses my desk, Ashanti. His tone was gentle, almost patronizing. You've always been sensitive about these things. Don't read into it. He kissed her forehead as he passed, the way someone might pet a loyal animal. Then he disappeared into the bedroom, leaving her in the half-light, surrounded by perfume and doubt. She stood there long after the sound of running water filled the hall. In the mirror near the dining table, her reflection stared back, frozen, distant, unrecognizable. The woman looking at her wasn't the bright-eyed teacher who once believed love could fix anything. She was a ghost of her own patience, dressed in quiet obedience. For the first time, Ashanti realized the silence she'd built around her marriage wasn't peace. It was surrender. The next morning, sunlight slanted through the blinds, cutting the room into stripes. Cato was already gone, leaving behind his usual note. Meeting at 9, back for dinner. She touched the paper, tracing his quick, indifferent handwriting. The same hand that had signed marriage papers, mortgage agreements, promises. Everything in his script felt rehearsed now. She brewed coffee, the bitter scent filling the kitchen. When she reached for her cup, her eyes landed on the jacket she hadn't moved since last night. The perfume still clung to it, defiant. Without thinking, she lifted the fabric again and pressed it against her face, not to smell it, but to test herself, to see if it still hurt. It did. Her phone buzzed, a message from Cato. Don't forget to pick up my gray suit from the cleaners. Important dinner tonight. She stared at the words. Dinner. Again. By afternoon, the city outside her window pulsed with life. Car horns, shouting vendors, the metallic rhythm of Johannesburg's late-day traffic. Ashanti walked through it like a sleepwalker. She stopped by the dry cleaner as instructed. The clerk handed her Cato's gray suit, freshly pressed, folded in clear plastic. He's a lucky man, the clerk said with a smile. My wife never remembers my suits. Ashanti smiled politely, though something sharp twisted inside her. Lucky. That word had lost its meaning. Back home, she hung the suit in the closet, aligning it beside the others. Row after row of expensive fabric, perfectly arranged by color. They looked like soldiers, standing at attention, lifeless and loyal. She realized then that her life had become the same, arranged, polished, controlled. She turned toward the dresser. There, beside a framed wedding photo, sat her old teaching certificate, still in its cracked glass frame. She hadn't touched it in years. She remembered the day she put it away. Cato had said, "You don't need to work anymore. Focus on the house, on me. We'll build something bigger together." Together. That word had once sounded beautiful. Now it felt like a cage. As evening fell, the light shifted to gold. She stood by the window, watching raindrops begin to streak the glass. The radio played the same jazz station, but tonight the saxophone sounded mournful, as if echoing her heartbeat. She poured herself a glass of wine, sat down at the table, and opened her laptop. A sudden thought crossed her mind. She searched Maison Argent online. Images appeared. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, red velvet chairs, the kind of place she'd once dreamt of going to on anniversaries. Scrolling further, she found a social media post tagged at the same restaurant the night before. Dinner vibes with the best boss ever. The photo showed Cato smiling broadly beside a woman with honey blonde hair. Selena Rhodes. Her hand rested lightly on his arm. The caption ended with a winking emoji. Ashanti stared at the image until her vision blurred. It wasn't rage she felt. It was a strange calm, almost clinical, as if her heart had been anesthetized. She closed the laptop quietly. The room felt smaller now. Later that night, Cato came home humming. He placed a kiss on her cheek as if nothing had changed. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," she said, her voice so even it startled her. "How was dinner?" He hesitated, just long enough for her to see it. "Same as always." She smiled faintly, a curve of lips without warmth. "Good." When he went to shower, she walked to the laundry room and took the jacket again. This time she noticed something she hadn't before. A tiny thread, golden, caught in the seam of the collar. She pulled it free and held it under the light. A single strand of blonde hair. Her stomach clenched. She dropped it into the trash, then stopped, retrieving it again with trembling fingers. Instead of discarding it, she placed it carefully inside an empty envelope and wrote on the front, "For later." She didn't know why she kept it. Maybe instinct, maybe proof, maybe the quiet birth of something she didn't yet understand. Hours passed. Cato slept soundly beside her, his breathing deep, untroubled. Ashanti lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The sound of rain returned, tapping softly against the window pane. In the darkness, she could still smell the faint trace of Dior Sauvage clinging to his pillow. She turned her head away, pressing her face into her side of the bed, searching for air that belonged only to her. She rose quietly and went to the bathroom. The mirror reflected a face she barely recognized. Her eyes, once bright, now seemed older, distant. The woman staring back at her was learning something new, not about him, but about herself. She realized she had spent years mistaking silence for strength, loyalty for love. Her fingers touched the mirror, tracing her reflection's outline. "Who are you now?" she whispered, though the words barely left her throat. The house was still. Only the rain answered. When she returned to the bedroom, she stopped at the doorway. Cato murmured in his sleep. A name, soft, slurred. Not hers. It sounded like Selena. The sound sliced through her, clean and quiet. She didn't wake him. She only stood there, listening to the rain and to the hollow rhythm of a man she no longer knew. In the gray light before dawn, Ashanti found herself standing before the mirror again, still holding the jacket. Her reflection was pale, her eyes rimmed with sleepless resolve. She realized something irreversible had happened, not between her and him, but within her. For years she had folded his clothes, tended his world, waited for gratitude that never came. But now, with that single thread of hair, that perfume lingering like a ghost, she understood what she'd lost wasn't just his love, it was her own reflection. She smoothed the jacket one last time and placed it on the chair. The scent no longer frightened her. It clarified her. The world outside was still dark, but she could already sense morning pressing at the edges of the sky. Somewhere, a taxi horn echoed. The city was waking, and so was she. The mirror was too clean. Ashanti ran her palm over it, smearing a trace of hand lotion across the glass. She needed the blur, needed not to see herself too clearly tonight. The dress shimmered under the bathroom light, rose gold and fragile, hugging her ribs just tight enough to remind her how much she hadn't eaten. The invitation had arrived last week, cream-colored cardstock, thick like gilt, engraved with her name in embossed serif. Mrs. Ashanti Mbeki, cordially invited to the Mbeki Corporation Executive Gala. It had been years since she was invited to anything beyond anniversaries and tax meetings. Tonight was supposed to be celebration. Her heels clicked against the hotel lobby floor like whispers that grew louder the closer she walked toward the banquet doors. She could already smell the money in the air: truffles, champagne, starch. Men in tailored suits, women with diamonds like chandeliers on their ears, all lit under the amber glow of downlighting that made even betrayal look elegant. Cato was across the room before he even turned to see her. His back was straight, his laugh deep, hand casually resting on a champagne flute. And beside him stood her. Selena Rhodes. She was younger than Ashanti expected. Maybe 29, maybe 30, skin porcelain smooth, hair cascading in golden curls that seemed to catch every damn light in the room. She wore a black satin dress with a slit up to the thigh and a necklace so delicate it looked like dew. But it was her smile that made the noise stop. Wide, painted, dangerous. Ashanti walked closer, rehearsing her breath. "Darling," Cato said, planting a kiss too quickly on Ashanti's cheek. "You look—" He paused, scanning her up and down. "Radiant." Ashanti didn't respond. Her eyes locked with Selena's. "Mrs. Mbeki," Selena purred, her accent crisp, colonial, too polished for someone who just transferred from the HR department. "So wonderful to finally meet you. Cato's told me so many charming things." The room swayed slightly. Ashanti smiled. "Really? I can't imagine what." "Your strength. Your grace under pressure," Selena replied with a sip of champagne, lips perfectly red, voice dripping with the kind of compliment that cut both ways. Dinner followed, tables arranged like strategy boards. Ashanti was seated 3 chairs away from Cato, who never once glanced back. Selena was beside him, hand brushing his arm as she whispered things that made him laugh. The laugh he used to save for Ashanti, the one that crinkled the corners of his eyes. The MC called for attention. Cato rose to give his speech, proud, polished, predictable. He thanked his board, his staff, the investors, then passed the mic to Selena. She took the stage like she owned it. "What I admire most about this company," she began, voice smooth as velvet, "is its commitment to diversity, to inclusivity, and to men like Mr. Mbeki, who support voices that don't always match the room, even when that makes them the exception." A polite chuckle rose around the room, but there was ice under it, a sharp silence after. Cato smiled. He actually smiled. Ashanti felt her jaw clench. After the speech, while the room turned to dancing and dessert, she caught him near the bar. "What was that?" she asked quietly. Cato didn't flinch. She was joking. "In front of your investors?" "She's young, Ashanti. That's how they talk now. You should try and loosen up." The words didn't land like a punch. They landed like a back turned in a storm. Cold. Final. "I was being gracious," she whispered, and He cut in, dropping his voice. "You're reading too much into things, like always." There it was, the phrase that scraped bone. She stepped back, clutching her wine glass tighter than necessary. The stem snapped between her fingers. A clean break. Red spilled onto her hand, the wine or her own blood. She couldn't tell. A waiter rushed forward with napkins. Cato didn't move. Selena appeared again, placing a manicured hand lightly on Cato's back. "Everything all right?" Ashanti didn't answer. She walked past them, through the heavy ballroom doors, into the open night air. Rain had started, cold and exact, the kind that slipped under your collar and whispered, "Leave now." She stood under the awning, heels sinking slightly into the damp grass, the lights of the hotel glowing behind her like the eyes of something watching. She could still hear the laughter from the ballroom, faint jazz from the live quartet, glasses clinking, deals being made, love being unmade. She looked at her hands, wine-stained, glass-bitten. She didn't feel pain, not yet, only the heaviness of something breaking too quietly to notice. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. A photo, no caption, just an image. Selena, arms wrapped around Cato's waist, backstage behind the banquet curtains, her lips brushing his ear. Ashanti stared at it for a full minute before deleting it. She had what she needed now. Not proof, not outrage. Clarity. The kind that doesn't scream, doesn't throw, doesn't beg. She stood in the rain until her dress darkened, stuck to her skin. And when she walked back through the lobby, passing the bar, the concierge, the guests who didn't dare meet her eye, she knew something had shifted. Not in him, in her. The kind of shift you don't come back from. Later that night, back home, she peeled off the wet dress, tossed it in the laundry bin like dead skin. She didn't cry. She went to the drawer where Cato kept his watches, picked up the Rolex he wore to the gala, turned it over in her hand. Inside, engraved on the back, were the words, "To Cato, for every moment you make unforgettable. See." She closed the drawer, went to the bedroom, lay beside him. He didn't wake, but she didn't sleep either. She just listened to the sound of his breath and the silence that now lived between them. She hadn't spoken to him in 3 days, not a word, not a glance. The silence wasn't angry. It was surgical, precise. It moved through the house like smoke, seeping into every crack. No slamming doors, no broken dishes, just the hum of the fridge, the whisper of socks on hardwood. Two people orbiting the same house like ghosts who didn't believe in each other anymore. Ashanti washed the wine glasses as if they were her only lifeline. She watched the water swirl down the sink, red-tinted from the Shiraz she poured alone. The clock read 8:41 p.m. Cato hadn't called, hadn't texted, not since the gala. The next morning, she found the photo. It appeared on a friend's social media feed, someone she hadn't spoken to in years but never unfollowed. It was a travel picture, Eiffel Tower at night, filtered with gold and blur, Paris in spring, captioned, "He makes me believe in magic again." And there they were, Cato, Selena, locked in that touristy pose, arms wrapped, cheeks pressed together, like lovers trying to become a single shape. Cato wore the scarf she gave him last Christmas. She recognized it from the stitch on the left hem, where the label curled slightly. Her fingers trembled, not from shock, but from the precision of it. She hadn't even known he was in France. He'd told her he was in Durban. 2 nights only, executive roundtable. She didn't scream. She didn't message him. She didn't share the post. She simply stared at the screen for several long minutes. Then she turned it off, went to the kitchen, made a cup of peppermint tea, and sat in the corner of the room. Later, she opened the home banking app. It took longer than usual to log in. 2-factor authentication, Face ID scan, waiting for the 6-digit SMS code to arrive. Her hands were steady, eyes dry. She wasn't even sure what she was looking for until she saw it. $50,000. Transferred from their joint HELOC account. 3 separate withdrawals over the span of 4 weeks. One marked Maison Argent corporate dinner. One marked Private Air Africa. The last one was labeled only personal investment. And every transaction bore a digital signature, not hers. Ashanti blinked once. Then she pulled up their original home equity agreement, scrolled to the authorization section, and saw the forgery. Her name, her initials, her e-signature, but the S in her last name curled the wrong way. Cato had forged her consent. The room tilted, not wildly, just enough for the center to slide. She stood up, walked to the mirror in the hallway, the one with the gold trim frame she'd picked up in a vintage store in Cape Town, back when she believed in slow decorating, in making a house a home. The mirror held her now like a stranger holds eye contact too long. That woman was not her. This one wore betrayal like an accessory she couldn't take off. That night, when Cato returned, he brought lavender soap from the airport and placed it on the bathroom sink as if it were a peace offering. She stared at it, the wrapper still on, until her vision blurred. At dinner, he talked about logistics, shipments, the rand-dollar exchange. He didn't mention Paris. She waited until dessert. "You forged my signature." His fork paused mid-air. Chocolate mousse, 3 bites left. He didn't speak. "You pulled equity from our home, Cato, without telling me." He set the fork down, slow. "I was going to—" When? Before the house was gone? Or after you posted pictures with your mistress under the Eiffel Tower? The silence stretched between them like a loaded wire. He leaned back, folding his arms. "You were never good with money. I didn't want to burden you with decisions you wouldn't understand." Ashanti smiled, cold, controlled. "Say that again." Cato's jaw clenched. "You're acting like a victim, Ashanti. I did what I had to do. The business needed it." "The business," she echoed. "Yes, the same business you gave up your career to support. That business." Her breath came out slow through her nose. "You're not just a liar, you're a thief." He stood. "I'm done with this conversation." But she didn't move. "Then get ready for the next one." He walked away. She didn't watch him go. She watched the candle on the table flicker until it died in its own wax. That night, she sat up in bed alone while he slept in the guest room, claiming her tone had been too combative. She opened the laptop, began downloading bank statements, chat logs, travel receipts, screenshots, all of it. She created a folder, named it Ashanti versus the Lie. The next morning, she walked into the study, opened the safe. retrieved the manila folder where they kept important documents, wills, tax returns, property deeds. Inside, she found another surprise, an insurance policy, life coverage for Cato, with a new beneficiary, Selena Rhodes. Her hands didn't shake this time. They went still, completely still. The silence became an organ inside her, beating, heavy, holy. She put everything back exactly as it was, then picked up her phone, dialed a number she hadn't used in years. Namusa Ebele's office. A crisp voice answered. I'd like to book a consultation. Name? Ashanti Mbeki. A pause, then a softer tone. She'll want to take that one personally. That evening, Cato didn't come home. No calls, no explanations, just the absence of footsteps that once used to mean safety. Ashanti cooked dinner anyway, stirred lentils, steamed rice. She plated both, sat at the table, ate in silence. She wasn't waiting for him. She was rehearsing her power, and when the house went dark that night, she didn't fear it. She welcomed the quiet, because it was finally honest, and in that quiet, she heard something she hadn't heard in years. Her own voice, steady, certain, and whispering to herself, "It's already begun." The scar ran from her jawline down to her collarbone, thin as a thread of lightning frozen mid-strike. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't even covered by makeup. Namusa Ebele wore it like a necklace forged from fire, quiet, sharp, and undeniable. Ashanti stared for a breath too long when they met in the paneled office with no windows. The books lining the walls weren't decorative. Their pages were marked, corners folded, titles faded from use. The air smelled of leather and peppermint oil. A clock ticked softly above the door, but it didn't matter. Time didn't seem to move in that room. Namusa didn't stand. She looked up from her notes and gestured to the seat across from her. Her voice was low, smooth, deliberate. "You're ready now." Ashanti sat down slowly, feeling her spine straighten without meaning to. "You don't know me. I know the silence you carry." She folded her hands. "That's enough." For a moment, the room felt too still. Ashanti looked down at the envelope in her lap, then slid it across the desk. Inside, screenshots, printouts, receipts, her marriage license, the forgery on the HELOC document, and a single printed photo, Cato and Selena in Paris, laughing under the Eiffel Tower. Namusa didn't react. She flipped through everything without blinking. "Did you confront him?" Ashanti nodded. "He denied it, then gaslit me." A pause. Namusa looked up, eyes unreadable. "Good, good. You didn't rage. You didn't show your hand. That means he's still sloppy." Ashanti's breath hitched. No lawyer had ever spoken to her like this, not like a victim, like a player. Namusa leaned back, tapping a finger on the edge of the desk. "Do you want revenge, or do you want your life back?" Ashanti blinked. "I want the truth to hurt." Namusa almost smiled. "Then we don't go loud, not yet. We build the trap, quiet, precise." She stood and walked to the cabinet, pulled out a thick black binder labeled Contingency Protocol, Family Division. She flipped to a page titled Legal Recordings, Consent States. Then another, Asset Protection Through Documentation. "First," she said, "you'll begin a journal. Everything, timestamps, conversations, anything that feels off, write it down." Ashanti nodded. "Second, get written consent for any shared financial decisions moving forward. Email works. You won't confront him again. You'll bait him." Ashanti's voice was quiet. "He's moving money without telling me. Let him. Let him think you're shrinking, that you're too tired, that you've given up." Ashanti swallowed hard. "I'm not a fighter." Namusa finally looked her straight in the eye. "You are, you just forgot." The scar caught the light as she turned her head. Ashanti didn't ask where it came from. She didn't need to. She felt it. By the end of that meeting, Ashanti had instructions, a temporary password for a secure drive, and a burner phone tucked into her purse with a note. "Don't use this near-home Wi-Fi. Call me from places he wouldn't expect." Namusa's final words were sharp and soft all at once. "Don't let fear make you holy. Let it make you strategic." That night, Ashanti didn't sleep in the bedroom. She told Kato she was feeling unwell. He grunted, scrolling through his phone, barely noticing. She moved her things to the guest room, locked the door, and opened the folder marked Phase 1, Documentation. In the days that followed, Ashanti played the role she'd perfected. Agreeable, quiet, fading into the background. She laughed at the right times, nodded when he spoke, took photos of receipts when he left them out, saved recordings of conversations on the burner phone, his dismissive comments, his cryptic calls, the way he mentioned moving the last of it before anyone notices. One morning, she asked gently, "Do you want me to help with the taxes this year?" He blinked, surprised. "That's sweet, but no. It's all handled. You just get overwhelmed." She smiled. "Of course." He kissed her cheek and left the house. Ashanti stared at the door long after it closed. 2 hours later, she met Namusa at a parking garage 5 blocks from the courthouse. They sat in the back seat of a gray sedan. Namusa slid over a printed email thread from Cato's corporate account, obtained through an anonymous leak. In the exchange, an offshore account, a second property registered under a shell company, a planned wire transfer next week. Ashanti read it once, then again. Her voice didn't shake. "So he's hiding everything." Namusa nodded. "We need to intercept, but first, we need permission." "Permission for what?" "To record the next call legally. He's about to say something he'll regret." Ashanti signed the affidavit without hesitating. That evening, when Cato came home, he mentioned a client dinner. Ashanti offered to iron his shirt. He blinked again, suspicious. "You don't have to." "I want to," she said. She let the shirt burn slightly under the iron, not enough to ruin it, just enough to make it smell like guilt. As he dressed, she stood by the doorway watching him. He looked in the mirror, adjusting his cufflinks. "You've been calmer lately." She tilted her head. "Should I not be?" He looked at her, half smiling. "No, it's nice. You're seeing things more clearly." Ashanti's voice came soft. "I am." After he left, she uploaded the night's recording. His tone, his arrogance, the hidden gloat in his voice. Namusa responded with one line. "The rope is tightening. Keep smiling." By the weekend, Ashanti had filled 3 notebooks, 1 page at a time, each entry a map, each sentence a loaded chamber. She no longer waited for him to come home. She timed his silences, counted his lies like puzzle pieces, and she remembered something Namusa had said back in that dark paneled office. "We won't win with tears. We'll win with paper." For the first time in years, Ashanti felt the shift. Not in him, in herself. The fire wasn't wild. It was focused. She stood in front of her closet that night, looking at the rows of dresses she hadn't worn in years. She reached for the black sheath dress, the one she used to wear when she lectured on curriculum equity. She hadn't touched it since giving up her job for Cato's vision. She held it up to the mirror, not to check the fit, but to remember the shape of the woman she used to be. That night, in the dark, when Cato slipped into bed beside her, she didn't flinch. She didn't breathe heavier. She simply turned her back and smiled into the pillow, because the hunt had begun. The diamonds in the photo weren't the problem. It was the caption that cut deepest. "A woman knows her worth. Thank you for reminding me, Kay." Selena's hand rested just beneath her collarbone, fingers gently grazing the diamond tennis necklace. Ashanti had seen that exact necklace months ago in the Cartier window on Bree Street, the one she'd walked past quietly while Cato took a call. She'd paused just long enough to trace the curve of the glass and whisper, "One day." Now that day belonged to someone else. Ashanti sat perfectly still at the breakfast table, the light from the window slicing across the hardwood floor like judgment. She sipped her coffee slowly, bitter, no sugar. She didn't flinch. The post had gone up just 2 hours ago. She had it saved. She had screenshots. The timestamps aligned with a charge on Cato's Amex, $10,000 filed under Client Entertainment. Namusa's message arrived at 9:03. "We use it, stack it with the HELOC forgery, build the weight." Ashanti responded with a single word. "Done." She didn't cry, she didn't scream. She opened the notes folder on her burner phone and logged it like the rest. Date, time, platform, transaction, screenshot. Then she opened another file, the one marked Unauthorized Loan Authorization, PDF. There it was. Cato's forged digital signature granting permission to take out a second loan, this time using their shared property as collateral, a quiet lien, a hidden noose. Ashanti's breath left her body like smoke. He was getting desperate, pulling money fast, covering tracks sloppily, and the bank had finally noticed. She'd received the first alert yesterday, a cold, formal letter tucked inside their mailbox. Dear Mrs. Mbeki, we are contacting you regarding the urgent review of asset status for property lien number 88771. Failure to respond within 14 business days may result in foreclosure procedures. She folded the letter back and placed it beneath the fruit bowl. Let it sit there. Let him see it and think she hadn't noticed. He hadn't come home last night. Another emergency conference in Pretoria. But Ashanti had tracked the car's GPS to a private villa near Camps Bay. Namusa had the satellite receipts. Everything was aligning, like pieces slowly falling into check. She just needed one more confirmation, and she got it. A notification blinked on her burner. Selena had just tagged herself at the same villa, a champagne flute in hand. The caption, "Freedom." Finally. Ashanti closed the app. She didn't smile. She got to work. She gathered the bank warnings, paired them with Selena's posts, attached time logs, matched them to credit charges. Every lie now had a partner. Every theft had a timestamp. By noon, she had a packet ready for Namusa. She called. "I'm coming in." Namusa didn't ask for details. At the office, Namusa laid out a clean manila folder. Ashanti slid the evidence across the table. No words, no commentary. Namusa leafed through it page by page. The screenshots, the loan documents, the bank warnings. Then she stopped, held up a glossy image of Selena and Cato by the infinity pool. She tagged herself? Ashanti nodded. Namusa let out a rare sound, something close to a laugh. These two deserve each other. Then her eyes narrowed. But they won't deserve your house or your future. She tapped the packet once. We're almost there. I want to push harder. I want his signature on something dangerous. Ashanti leaned in. What kind? A power of attorney document, narrow scope, just enough to let him think you're surrendering. We make it look like trust. Meanwhile, we prep a freeze on all joint assets. Ashanti paused. He'll never sign that. He will, Namusa said, if you smile like he's already won. That night, Ashanti cooked dinner. Cato showed up late, smelling like expensive bourbon and ocean air. He kissed her cheek, talked about traffic, finance meetings, false obligations. She nodded, served the food, poured wine. He didn't notice her eyes watching his hands, his jaw, the way he avoided talking about the villa. Halfway through the meal, she said it lightly. I've been thinking, maybe it's time you handled everything. He looked up. What do you mean? The bank stuff, the taxes, the lawyer emails. I just feel tired. She pushed a single page across the table. Power of attorney. Printed at the top in soft gray serif. Beneath it, a narrow clause. Limited access. Timed expiration. He read it quickly. Raised a brow. You're giving me control? I'm trusting you, she said. He signed. Just like that. No questions, no hesitation. Ashanti excused herself, walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at her reflection. Her hands were trembling now, not from fear, from restraint. She placed the signed document into a second envelope and sealed it tight. It was done. The next morning, Namusa filed the freeze. Their accounts, their shared real estate, the HELOC, all locked. Within hours, Cato would learn that he could no longer move a single cent without her signature. But she didn't tell him. Not yet. She let him post. Let him laugh. Let him upload another selfie from the rooftop lounge. Selena leaning into him like wind. Ashanti saved that photo too. Not for evidence, for memory. That night, while Cato slept, she opened the bedroom safe. Inside were the fake documents. She replaced them with certified ones. Originals. Irrefutable. Each page stamped and notarized. The trap was closing. But still, she didn't feel triumph. She felt something colder. She stood in the doorway and looked at him, sleeping, peaceful, unaware. 12 years of loyalty erased by greed. 12 years of mornings, meals, laughter, and now, this. Her fingers grazed the doorknob. She whispered, so low only the silence could hear. "You taught me to play this game. You never thought I'd learn." She closed the door. Outside, the night air was heavy. Rain tapped lightly on the roof. Ashanti walked down the hallway and stood in front of the mirror again. The same one from before. But this time, something had changed. She wasn't watching herself disappear. She was watching herself return. Not the wife. Not the shadow. The strategist. The woman with evidence. The woman with leverage. The woman who smiled because she finally understood. They wouldn't fall because she pushed. They would fall because they were already hollow. And hollow things collapse on their own. They walked in holding hands. Selena's dress was white. Not courtroom white. Wedding white. Off-shoulder silk, clinging like a smug declaration. She wore pearls too large to be modest and heels sharp enough to pierce dignity. Cato held her arm like a prize. His gray suit was pressed, no tie, top button undone like he didn't fear the law, only boredom. They looked rehearsed. Ashanti entered exactly 37 seconds later. Not late, just deliberate. Her heels were low, quiet. Her suit black, tailored, not flashy. She wore no jewelry except her wedding ring, still on her finger, still legal, still a symbol. The room didn't hush when she entered. It listened. Namusa followed at her side like a shadow that had learned to stand tall. They walked past Cato and Selena without a word. Selena's smirk twitched, unsure whether to stay or leave. Cato leaned back, muttering something that made Selena fake laugh. Ashanti didn't look. The courtroom was wood-paneled, solemn, lit like a storm was gathering outside. And it was. Judge Martinez presided. Female, mid-60s, stern eyes, no makeup. Her voice was gravel and steel. "We are here to settle Mbeki versus Mbeki. Civil dissolution, asset division, financial misconduct allegations." She tapped her gavel once. The sound echoed like thunder held in. Namusa rose first. She spoke simply, clearly. She didn't rush. She didn't plead. She presented a sequence, a map, documents, paper trails, signed lies, frozen accounts, Ashanti's financial records, the HELOC withdrawals, the forged permissions, the secret transfers, the unauthorized real estate deals. Every exhibit was numbered, indexed, laminated. A full storm in a briefcase. Then came the photos. Selena with jewelry. Cato by her side. Captions about freedom, gifts, trust. Judge Martinez glanced at Cato. "Are you aware that marital funds were used for these purchases?" Cato leaned forward, his voice smooth, oiled. "These were business gestures, relationship management." "Did you have your wife's consent?" Cato smiled. "My wife was never interested in the business. She preferred not to be burdened." Ashanti didn't blink. Namusa handed over a printed transcript, Cato's voice from 2 weeks ago, recorded, legal, clear. "Move the rest before she finds out. We'll wrap it under client development." Judge Martinez read the quote aloud. Cato's smile twitched. Then Namusa played the video. Selena's voice, laughing, captured in a private moment at a resort bar. "I swear, if his wife knew she was paying for my Louboutins, she'd die." A hush swallowed the room. Cato shifted in his seat. Selena paled. The judge turned to them both. "Do either of you contest this footage?" Cato opened his mouth. Namusa spoke first. "One more thing, Your Honor." She handed over the final document, the divorce settlement, prepared by Ashanti's team, presented to Cato weeks prior. He'd signed the first page in confidence, thinking it was standard division. He'd missed the fine print, the footnote clause, page 6, addendum 4B, a reassignment of 80% property rights in the event of proven misconduct. He hadn't read it. He had trusted she was folding. Judge Martinez turned to him. "Did you or did you not sign this agreement of your own volition?" Cato looked down. "I didn't know." "That's not the question." "I thought—" "Did you sign?" Silence. "Then, yes." The judge didn't blink. "Then per your agreement and per the evidence of fraud, the court hereby freezes all marital assets. As of today, 70% is awarded under temporary sole control to Mrs. Ashanti Mbeki, pending formal distribution." Selena's mouth opened. No sound came out. Judge Martinez continued. Furthermore, this court recommends the documentation of financial misconduct be referred to the Department of Commercial Crimes for formal investigation. Gavel, 1 strike. Sharp, final. Cato stood abruptly. "You tricked me," he hissed, voice cracked with disbelief. Ashanti didn't move. She stood slowly, turned, met his eyes, and held them. 12 years of love, betrayal, strategy, pain, all in that look. She didn't gloat. She didn't flinch. Her silence was complete, a verdict of its own. Cato stepped forward. "You planned this." Namusa stepped in. "Not another word, Mr. Mbeki." He turned to the judge. "This is a setup." She manipulated the system. But Judge Martinez had already turned to the next file. The trial was over. Justice had already spoken. Ashanti walked out first. She didn't look back. Outside, the sky was overcast. Cool wind against her cheeks. Her chest ached, not with sorrow, but release. Namusa handed her a small envelope. "They'll issue the full transfer within a month." Ashanti nodded. "Thank you." They stood at the top of the courthouse steps. Down below, press waited. Not many, but enough. A reporter approached. "Mrs. Mbeki, any comment on the verdict?" Ashanti met the woman's eyes, soft, measured, then turned to the camera lens. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers on paper. She walked away. Namusa followed. Behind them, Cato stood at the doors, unmoving. Selena at his side, lips tight, heels suddenly too high for the marble. They looked like dolls who'd forgotten how to move. Ashanti didn't care. Not anymore. She stepped into the waiting car, sat still as it pulled away. One tear slid down her cheek. Not from pain, not from joy, from recognition. This was the moment she'd waited for, not revenge, but breath, her own breath, uninterrupted. The first photo hit the headlines at 8:42 a.m. Mbeki exec investigated for fraud, luxury funded by marital accounts. The image showed Cato stepping out of a black SUV, hand shielding his face from the flash. Selena was just behind him, lips tight, sunglasses oversized. The article below detailed frozen assets, court transcripts, and anonymous audio leaks revealing internal misappropriation of funds. His name trended before breakfast. Ashanti didn't read the article twice. Once was enough. She sipped her tea slowly, steam rising in the quiet morning light, her fingers tracing the rim of the mug like it might answer back. The house was still, not empty, not yet, but quiet in a way it hadn't been in years, the kind of quiet that didn't ache. Namusa had warned her. They will retaliate, not with bullets, with headlines, with whispers, but you'll be bulletproof if you don't flinch. So she didn't. The next wave came by noon. Cato was fired. The board at his company released a statement citing ethical review processes and ongoing investigation cooperation. His bio vanished from the leadership page, his access revoked. By evening, the luxury car company reclaimed his lease. 2 days later, the villa was locked, repossessed under a loan default clause. And Selena? Gone. Her accounts disappeared, Instagram scrubbed, WhatsApp silent. The last message Ashanti saw was a comment Selena left under a fashion blog. Lesson learned, never bet on borrowed power. Ashanti didn't smile, but she breathed easier. The calls began next. Old colleagues from her teaching days. Universities who'd once overlooked her CV because it lacked global experience were now requesting her insight on workplace diversity, inclusive leadership, post-trauma resilience. It started with a single lecture, then a panel, then a contract. She signed it on the same dining table where Cato once laughed off her dreams, and then she signed another, and another. Each email felt like a door creaking open, dust lifting, sun pouring in. She incorporated Ubuntu consulting in under a week. Namusa sat across from her when the final papers arrived. "You've got your name back," she said, handing her the embossed folder. Ashanti ran her finger across it slowly. Ubuntu Consulting, advancing equity through voice. The first check arrived within 10 days. St. Clair University, the same institution that rejected her 4 years ago, now paying her 5 figures to design a semester curriculum. She walked into their auditorium in soft gray slacks and a pressed white blouse. No jewelry, just clarity. The hall was packed. Students, faculty, local journalists. The spotlight warmed her skin as she stepped behind the podium. She didn't use notes. She spoke slow, clear, as if every sentence deserved a place to land. "Sometimes people will strip you down to what they think you're worth," she said, voice steady, "and sometimes you'll believe them. But value doesn't live in perception. It lives in principle. And principle, once broken, shapes the kind of freedom no one can take from you." No applause yet, only breath held. Then waves of it. Standing ovation. Some clapped hard. Some cried quietly. She didn't bow. She nodded once and walked off stage. Later in the green room, she sat alone. No mirror, no script, just stillness. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then picked up. The voice was low, tired, familiar. "Hey, it's me, Kato." She didn't speak. I wanted to say I'm sorry. The silence between them was soft, thick. He continued. "I was arrogant. I thought I could control everything. I never thought you'd fight back." Her voice came calm. "You never thought I'd stop folding." He let out a breath. "I lost everything." "No," she said. "You lost what you took for granted." A pause. He cleared his throat. "I don't want money. I just wanted to say it. That I know now." Ashanti leaned back. "I'm not angry, Kato." "Then what are you?" "Free." She hung up. Gently. No slam. No hecho. Just release. Later that night, she stood in front of the window. Rain painted silver lines on the glass. The city blinked in soft blue and yellow. Somewhere, jazz floated up from an open car. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like a witness to her own life. She felt like a woman who had walked through fire and chosen not to burn. She turned back to her desk. A stack of new requests awaited her review. But she didn't sit yet. She just stood there. A soft exhale escaped her lips. This wasn't the end. It was only the clearing. And deep inside her, under skin that had learned how to rebuild, something new stirred. Not triumph, not revenge, but a quiet, certain dignity. And the steady beat of something that sounded a lot like peace. Rain tapped the windows like someone begging not to be forgotten. Thin streaks slid down the glass, blurring the world outside into colors that didn't know where they ended. Ashanti poured 2 cups of tea anyway. She didn't ask why he came. She just opened the door. Kato stood there soaked, hands bare, no umbrella. His suit was rumpled, not expensive anymore, just wet. His eyes were smaller now, or maybe she'd just grown too far from them. "May I come in?" he asked, voice low, uneven. She stepped aside. He entered like he was walking into a memory that didn't belong to him anymore. The warmth of the office, the scent of bergamot candles, the stack of folders neatly arranged by consultation times. Her new nameplate gleamed gold by the glass door. Ashanti Mbeki, Ubuntu Consulting. She pushed a cup toward him, ceramic, real, no more crystal flutes, no more illusion. He sat across from her without speaking for a long while, just held the tea, watched the steam. His shoulders hunched like he couldn't carry the weight of his own silence anymore. "I didn't come to ask for anything," he said. She nodded, said nothing. I didn't know who else to apologize to." Her hands rested still on her knees. She looked at him, fully. Like someone finally seeing the last scene of a film they once thought had a different ending. "I thought you were trying to destroy me," he whispered. She blinked once. "I wasn't." "I know, that's what makes it worse." He laughed, soft and broken. "I thought I could outplay you and you—" He looked up, eyes glinting. "You didn't raise your voice. Not once. You just kept receipts." "I didn't win," she said quietly. "You lost." He looked away. The rain thudded harder, or maybe her heart did. "I lost everything," he said, "the job, the house, the respect, even Selena." He stopped. Ashanti tilted her head. She left. He nodded. "Vanished. Blocked my number. Took the money she could. I don't even blame her." She exhaled, not with relief, with recognition. He looked at her like a man realizing the fire he lit burned down his own roof. "People keep asking if I'll sue, or if I'll fight to get something back." Ashanti sipped her tea. Will you? No. He looked up. What would I even be fighting for? He set the cup down untouched, hands trembling. I just needed to say it, out loud, to the only person who mattered. I'm sorry, Ashanti. She didn't nod, didn't forgive, didn't explain. She reached for her notebook, pulled a single page free. It was a quote. She slid it across to him. He read it. Forgiveness isn't letting someone off the hook. It's realizing the hook was in you. He let out a breath that sounded more like a confession. I can't ask you to forgive me. I'm not holding anything anymore, she said. He stood slowly, looked around the room like he was memorizing it. Ubuntu, he read from the door. It suits you. She stood too. I didn't name it to sound wise. I named it because it reminded me I wasn't born of your version of love. I was born of something shared. He looked down. The quiet held between them. When he stepped outside, the rain had softened. She didn't close the door until he disappeared around the corner. No umbrella, no arrogance. Just a man finally aware of the size of the hole he'd dug. She turned back to her desk. Hundreds of emails waited, calls to return, proposals to review. The world had not paused for closure. It had kept spinning, and she had learned to spin with it. She sat, opened her laptop, stared at the blinking cursor. Her reflection in the screen didn't look like a survivor. It looked like a woman who had made peace with never going back. There was a knock. She opened the door. Her assistant stood there, eyes wide. Another booking from St. Clair, and CNN just called. Ashanti smiled. Schedule it. As the door closed again, the rain stopped. And outside the window, the clouds cracked open like a promise. Light poured in. Soft, slow, undeniable. She didn't need to step into it. It had already stepped into her. Sometimes the deepest betrayals don't come from strangers, but from those who once vowed to protect us. Not with knives or curses, but with silence, with absence, with choices made behind closed doors. And yet life has a way of offering us a mirror, not to punish, but to awaken. It doesn't always arrive in grand gestures. Often, it's in the quietest moments. When someone stops folding the shirt, stops waiting for the call, stops explaining themselves to people committed to misunderstanding them. And that's when something shifts. That's when strength stops sounding like volume and starts moving like still water, patient, persistent, unstoppable. Dignity isn't loud. It doesn't scream down hallways or announce its return. It rebuilds itself in quiet rooms, behind locked doors, with tired hands and steady hearts. Dignity shows up every time someone chooses not to shrink, every time someone walks away without dragging rage behind them. It speaks when it must, and it learns when silence says more than fury ever could. Because healing isn't the absence of pain. It's the refusal to let pain make you someone you're not. It's the moment you stop trying to prove your worth to someone who already decided not to see it. It's when you realize forgiveness doesn't mean what happened was okay. It means you're done giving it permission to follow you. This wasn't a story about revenge. It was about return. Not to what was lost, but to what was always yours. The quiet, the clarity, the breath. And if this story has found you at a crossroads, between staying silent and speaking your truth, between collapsing and rising again, I hope it reminds you of one simple thing. You're allowed to start over, with boundaries, with your name intact, with grace that doesn't flinch. And when they say you've changed, smile, because you have, and you're not sorry for it. Thank you for listening, for feeling, for walking this journey with us. If something in this story resonated with you, if you saw yourself in the quiet battles, the unspoken grief, or the unexpected power, you're not alone. We'd love to hear your reflections. Feel free to leave a comment below, share your thoughts, or tell us what this story awakened in you. Don't forget to follow, like, or subscribe so you won't miss what comes next. Until the next story, take care of your truth, and let it take care of you.